consulting costs. So it says Amazon-backed media report pressures Indian film and television companies to push for diversity and inclusion. I immediately wanted to cover this because one of the things that I find fascinating is that I think a lot of what we're dealing with as far as the entertainment industry, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, quotas that are being put in place by what are literally called diversity czars in some companies. It's a product of being from a naturally diverse country, but still has one, I guess, a dominant, like, what is it? America still 60% white?
I'm not sure. It's around that.
So we still have a majority population here, but we are far more diverse than most countries, which, you know, when you're homogenous, you don't have to think as hard about these types of questions.
But that's not true in reality then, because we're one of the most diverse countries, yet we have the largest, like, most bloated HR and diversity, equity, inclusion class of almost any of them.
But I'm saying now that
which
class
means
is
we do have to think about it harder.
I'm saying now that class. No, I'm saying they don't, like, India shouldn't have to think about it harder.
And I think now they're trying to roll it out on a global scale, so which is more culturally imperialistic than
absolutely
they want to admit.
So, sorry, wait, just to clarify, you think that India shouldn't have to worry about it?
I'm saying
I don't think anyone should have to worry about it.
I'm saying they shouldn't have to have Amazon companies pushing for them to change how their movies are made, be based on American values.
Yeah, I would argue that Indian culture actually still really relies on the caste system.
Yeah, they talk about that.
And we have no concept for that in America because that's not our thing and that's not our issue. And so in some ways, like, you know, I haven't watched a ton of movies and film from India. There was one about, like, a wedding planner that Amazon put out, and, like, I don't think it got renewed for a second season, but it was a wild and good time. And the caste system gets discussed and depicted all the time. I would argue that in some ways Indian culture and film, from my limited knowledge, and I'm willing to be corrected on this, actually has to talk about diversity in a much more natural way.
You're talking about talking about it. They're talking about literally the numbers of the people on screen.
But that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's much more real and present in their culture, because it's, instead of it being this, like, imposed, like, you should have certain representations of diversity that are not actually proportional. Like, I remember reading the study that there are however many depictions of, like, LGBTQ people in Hollywood, but that's actually not representational at all to the proportion of the US. If you
Hollywood is 23% LGBTQIA+.
If you only took in American media, you would think our country is like 50% LGBTQ, which is not the case.
Or you'd think, like, they were, like, Larry Elder was talking on the show the other night. He's talking about, like, the media can skew anything. Like, people think that that cops are just mowing people down in the streets here. The media can twist anything. But they talk about, the media company's name is Ormax Media and Film Companion, which is very Ormax. I don't know. It just sounds nefarious to me. Media watchdogs have spent the last 5 to 10 years analyzing just how diverse and inclusive modern television shows and movies have become. As a result, many of these major entertainment giants, such as Disney, NBC Universal, and Netflix, have mandated diversity and inclusion quotas, officers in diversity, equity, and inclusion quotas, and officers in order to ensure progressive hiring standards in front of and behind the camera. Amazon Video, now working with Indian media consulting firm Ormax Media and Film Companion. Yes, there's that damn consultant class.
There are too many of these, like, consultant agencies, NGOs that just want entertainment in their, like, chokehold. They want to control it all.
The report took into consideration a total of 100 films and 50 series released in 2021 across 8 Indian languages. And it says, per the report, of the 56 theatrical Indian films analyzed across languages, not one was directed or edited by a woman. The report continues to complain that only 10% of senior leadership roles in major media and entertainment houses were held by women. The report goes into deeper detail about the lack of inclusivity within the Indian ranks of cinema and entertainment. So that first part was about the behind the scenes stuff. It says, using progressive metrics such as the Bechdel test, which is not a real thing. I don't care what anyone says. It was made up by a feminist.
Okay,
it's a real thing. It's just stupid.
We should define it for the audience. The Bechdel test is how often female characters talk to one another, and it doesn't have anything to do with a man.
Can't be about a man.
But did they?
I don't remember the last time I watched a modern thing where the women talked about a man.
Did this get compared to real life, like, women's conversations?
No.
Like, where is this rooted in? Because
women talk about people.
Women talk about people
more
all
than
the
anything.
time. Yeah.
So it says only 55% of the films and series passed the Bechdel test. In promotional trailers, women only had 25% of the talk time, with 48 titles allocating 10 seconds or less to female characters.
Like, this just feels like we want Bollywood to be Hollywood.
I want to ask a question.
I feel like we should take Bollywood's lead on diversity. They are literally having to analyze multiple languages.
Yep.
And we're like, we know about diversity.
Yeah.
I want to ask if this is simply a lack of creativity in Hollywood. In Hollywood and Bollywood, do they just not know how to tell stories that will be interesting enough to watch that don't have male-centric roles?
No,
right?
Nothing in this says that these films that they're analyzing are not successful.
I'm talking about. I'm talking about the metrics themselves bear out that women make up only 10% of the.
Well, do you think that in order to have mainstream success outside of India, they would need to implement these changes?
I think that's what the consultants think. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I believe that, okay, for instance, America, we're putting more women in front of the screen, but we're not giving them women roles. We're giving them roles as men in still male-centric movies, just playing character against the type of role a female would normally have. So the question here is, I don't care if you put more women on screen. I care that you actually tell good stories that involve the female characters, rather than just saying we're not going to actually be diverse. We're just going to put more women and tell the same stories.
And unfortunately, because that is so prevalent, when I see a female lead, before I even know the story or watch it, I almost want to give up entirely.
Yeah. It's what happened with me with Prey when we were watching Prey. I have a natural bias now. I can watch anything from we talked about Covert Affairs the other day or Alias the other day, because that notion was not implemented in that level of Hollywood yet. You look at it with a far more open mind than you look at stuff being made now, because you know that bias in that initiative, that that they were hired by a diversity officer.
Yeah, they're conditioning people into harboring the biases that they've been scaremongering about before they were even relevant.
So it's literally becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
They talk about how television did generally better than film with the Bechdel test and all the other stuff. That's because there's literally just more time on screen, so they have to fill more time.
Now apply the Bechdel test to our office and figure out how often 2 female staff members talk about something other than a man. Because I feel like that's the only control, right? Are they saying that it's supposed to represent reality?
Yeah. And if it represented reality, you would find that women talk about people nonstop, and that includes men.
Saying that we would have to have a conversation about something other than men's means we couldn't talk about anything to do with my office because I share an office with a man. We couldn't talk about anything to do with this podcast, probably, because Brett's here. We probably couldn't talk about most of our office or what goes on in our office because it involves male coworkers.
Or about politics because
about our families
so
because there are men there.
I
just don't understand this test unless it's more nuanced. They're talking about specifically talking about men in a romantic or love
I wouldn't trust it
way.
To be nuanced.
I don't think it's nuanced at all. We also couldn't talk about politics, including Joe Biden, the male president. You don't understand.
I don't know if the Bechdel test is
difficult for women to talk.
I don't know if the Bechdel test is supposed to mean talking about a man in a relationship sense. That you might be overgeneralizing that. They may be referring to the Bechdel test as you only.
I'm not an expert on it.
That's what I want to know. Does it mean any mention of a man at any time? Or are they talking about specifically
I think it's
having
about
women
is
being
he hot?
Is he cute?
I think.
But that's never in movies anyway.
I know.
Except for teeny bopper movies, right?
Yeah.
Also,
fair enough. That's what teenage girls talk about sometimes.
There's no way to prove this other than to just do just to read the articles and look at what's getting made. But the idea that, at least on the Hollywood side, not on the Indian side, but on the Hollywood side, that women are underrepresented is actually belly laughable.
I looked it up. So the Bechdel test is a simple test which has 3 criteria. So it has to test at least 2 women. It has to have at least 2 women in it, and they have to talk about something, who talk to each other, something besides a man. That's it. That's as specific as it gets.
Okay,
that can mean a lot of things.
Yes.
That's insane. That doesn't make any sense.
If you keep it that vague, it's easy to fail a lot of
I'm
films.
on BechdelTest.com. Somebody name a movie. Sorry, I'm derailing this.
Clueless.
That's going to be a bad one.
That one's going to fail.
Clueless is incredible.
Maybe, no, that won't fail.
Clueless. Movie passes 3 for 3.
No, it would pass. It wouldn't. There's enough women talking about
But it's a teeny bopper movie, so I was like,
okay, what's another one?
Oh yeah, he's kind of a Baldwin.
Right,
That's my favorite line from.
Name a man's movie.
Fast and the Furious.
Okay. Which one?
The first one.
Are there enough women in that to even?
That's how we're gonna find out.
Yeah, it's got Michelle Rodriguez and Padgett.
It fails. It passes 1 out of 3.
I just think like if men enjoy movies where
This is stupid.
they don't pass this arbitrary test, it's probably just because that's their taste, and like why is that wrong?
Why is that
The
wrong?
women have to be 2 named characters who talk to each other, and they have to talk about something other than besides men. In Fast and Furious, there are 2 named women who are like, the car is not working. I know it's
What
not
if they're
going
like
very fast at all?
pass the napkins or something like that? Does that count?
Probably not.
So this is we went to continue. We hope this report serves as a starting point for the industry to come together and discuss ways to address the evident imbalance. I'm picturing them like tapping a baseball bat, looking very threatening at them. Don't make us come after you. Last year, CBS made the announcement that they will target at least 50% representation of Black, Indigenous, people of color, BIPOC across all casts for future unscripted series. 50% is an overrepresentation of the population.
Yeah, it's not proportional.
Yeah.
Top Gun fails the Bechdel test, but Top Gun Maverick passes the Bechdel test.
Of course, it's a masterpiece.
This is stupid. I'm going to start making up my own tests.
Earlier this year,
Guys, we really need to get my research group up and running.
Earlier this year, British network ITV forged 80 million, that's it's 105 million American, diversity commissioning fund to be spent over the next 3 years on shows produced by or related to Black, Asian, or minority, ethnic, or disabled people. One of the ones that I like the most is I do like it when they can work it. Like there's an actress named Meredith Eaton. She's a little... I don't need. Is little person still the proper term?
Person.
Okay, she is a fantastic actress, and they always find cool ways to like have. She had an episode of House, which is one of the best.
She's so good in that episode. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Where she goes punch for punch with House during the whole episode,
and he
likes her. It's really funny. He's like into it. And she's great. She played like a CIA person in the MacGyver reboot. It makes no sense. She would clearly never work for the CIA, but she's so good in the role, you don't care.
Well,
and it was made just before Hollywood went mentally.
Okay, that means like women are capable of challenging men in interpersonal situations without acting like men.
Yes.
I liked Marlee Matlin, who's in West Wing, and when she's in, like, the fact that she's a deaf actress or deaf character comes up, right? That's really who she is, and there's some jokes about it, but it's not like, oh, good, we have like our deaf consultant coming into the White House today. They don't play it off like that at all.
Because the idea would be she's worked her way up that high in spite of her condition.
And she has a flirtation with one, like she's just a character, and I think that is like what the strange thing about the consultancy diversity class is, which is like you have to scream that you have complied, and we have to draw attention to it constantly, which is like not natural.
And how often do I point out, I said, just do it and don't draw attention to it, and you will gain far more. Like, you're not going to win all the people
but
back.
if you do something correct, you have to point it out so everyone knows.
Yeah, it's the worst part. I was just thinking about in John Wick 2, they made Ruby Rose's character deaf, or at least mute. Not deaf, she was mute because she signs, but she can hear him when he talks, I think.
We were just talking about Covert Affairs.
Yep.
There's a blind character in that show, and I feel it was not shoehorned in the way that they do it today.
And nowadays, they wouldn't allow Christopher Gorham to play that character because Christopher Gorham is not blind. He can see, but the character...
That would be a crime in the representation.
I'm trying to think of, I don't know her name, but the woman who was in the most recent Jurassic Park movie, or Jurassic World, and she was the fighter pilot girl who's
DeWanda Wise?
Yeah, DeWanda Wise.
Okay, I thought she was great in the role. I would say statistically, I'm not sure what the proportion of African American military pilots is. You could say it doesn't really matter. They didn't really draw a ton of attention to it, but like it was one of those things where it's right on the line. Like she may not be typically reflective of who most military pilots are. On the other hand, like I thought she carried the role well.
I also want to point out that there's something in that film, in that line with her that would have been different 10 years ago, where she talks about she got into flying because her mom was a Navy pilot. 10 years ago, it would have been my dad was a Navy pilot.
That's exactly the hiccup I was thinking of. Like, for the most part,
it's little things like that. They try to do it under your nose.
This is why I can't watch modern movies anymore, because I notice it every time. It ruins it for me from the moment I start watching it and I start dissecting it. And I feel bad for the actors because they're just giving them the material that was that they're fed, and I'm like, no, that's
the thing. They ruin the thing. They ruin the illusion of her being like this pilot who's just there because she's good by adding this line. Like, if they really wanted to sell it, they should have a reflection in reality, right? There's a picture of her parents in the cockpit. Like, she is
her
not
dad
biracial,
would have more likely been the pilot,
right? Yeah.
Sorry, it's the truth. Sorry.
But you make her story seem fake by not honoring reality.
Yep. And I'm saying, this is why I stop shows 20 minutes in, because the second I catch something like that in modern media, it just turns me off.
And I think if Indian consumers don't have to deal with that headache,
they shouldn't have
then
to.
All power to them.
Stop the consultant class.
If you don't want to become more marketable to the West by implementing all of these stupid diversity, equity, inclusion quotas, then good for you.
See, I feel like they should, in some ways, shouldn't we ask India how they deal with diversity, because they actually have diversity as a real and present factor with a hierarchy. Like, that's the thing about being in America. We're like, everyone's good and equal. Like, Indian society believes in a caste system, which means that there are certain...
Is that still based on skin tone, or is it just your...
It's based on a couple different things, but skin tone is part of that. Like, you can't suddenly produce a very pale baby and they're considered higher than the other.
You could even make that, like...
It's socioeconomic. It's a couple different things. But that being said, shouldn't we ask them how they deal with it? I get that they're going after them for, like, what appears to be a specific weakness, which is, like, female participation, but
that seems to be the biggest focus
generally
of this.
I think that, like,
why
are we the authority on this?
That won't be received well because they have a different culture.
Nobody likes Bollywood for the guys. They don't.
I
mean, true.
Like,
let me rephrase it. No American film, no American dude who watches Bollywood.
Sure.
Okay, I'm generalizing. I'm not saying they don't love the movies. Okay, look how cool the dude looks. Just let the dudes be the dudes.
It's like,
okay,
India has its own problems. They have a caste system. China has its own problems. They have a social credits system, and the West has its own problems too. And I hate that we try to be the world police, even in the sector of entertainment.
We're not. Yeah, like we've rolled back the military, and now we're just sending out HR departments.
Well, we're
around
acting
the world.
like we're just like carpet bombing the world with rainbows and puppies and diversity.
Why do we care how India produces its movies? They're doing fine.
Because Amazon is a global company and they want to hit multiple markets, but those multiple markets have to reflect our values.
You can't. It's not going to work.
Because I definitely want Amazon to set our culture. That's what I've always hoped for.
At Prime Video, we have rolled out an inclusion policy playbook that has institutionalized certain guidelines to ensure just female representation on and off screen.
Is this also true in the Middle East? Do their diversity, inclusion, and equity stuff
apply
to Middle Eastern
I
countries?
guess those flags in Saudi Arabia don't change on June 1st. They don't. These range from mandatory... I can't believe I can read this with a straight face. These range from mandatory female representation in writers' rooms. You're going to make every male there hate you.
Yeah.
They're going to hate you.
Like, I'm sorry, but, like, you don't understand our culture requiring women to, like, suddenly be put in writers' rooms. Like, you don't know what you're asking them to go through, right? We're going to get stories later that was like, Amazon made me sit in a men's only writer's room and it was uncomfortable and I didn't like it.
Evaluating every script on specific parameters. We know what those parameters are. Not whamming, not
the sweet
not
test,
whamming enough.
The Bayesian test.
Not whamming enough.
Not whamming enough. Not gay enough. Not whatever. Like
too white.
Movies too white. Yeah, whatever. I'm so past. I'm not past caring though, because like like I said, we point out what happened with DeWanda Wise, who did a fantastic job in that role, and then the one line just freaking ruins it. And
it like, didn't have to be there. They're just like trying to be like, look how good we are at diversity, everybody.
Girl boss mom was a pilot in the Air Force.
That's why I'm a girl boss.
Are you saying that women can only be inspired by things their moms do? Like, it's just as believable that she saw her dad have a cool career and was like, I want to do that too.
No, that's not believable because men bad. So it says, I am certain the streaming is going to...
Or is that like, sorry, I can make this way worse. Is that a comment on like the fact that especially Black Americans have a high rate of fatherlessness, like high rate of single motherhood?
That's even worse.
That's what I'm saying. Are they saying her dad wasn't around to show her his cool career?
No,
like,
he was
that's
at home,
way worse.
He was probably at home taking care of her because her mom was off girl bossing.
He was at home vacuuming and fabricating.
And the women and then women everywhere have to pretend that that's what they want.
Like, they could have avoided this whole thing. It's dumb.
Okay,
also, I will absolutely not pretend that's what I want.
I'm saying, I'm asking two women. I was like, women don't actually want that, right? Like,
I'm a black female Air Force pilot who was raised by a stay-at-home dad.
They don't want that.
I think that's believable. I think they'll believe it. Our writer's room is like, that sounds like something they'll buy.
Like, all you...
I just hope, like, somehow they'll learn the hard way. You can't fake this stuff. You can't force
when it feels right, it feels right. And we need like a not diversity, equity, inclusion officer to come and be like, he works with the director.
We need a conformity and exclusion.
I know what's crazy for like one PR move, all Jurassic Park, and this is not about Jurassic Park, it's about diversity in Bollywood, but all Jurassic Park had to do was find one black female former military pilot and ask her what made you want to be a pilot. They could have ripped off her story with her consent, paid her a hefty consultant's fee, and then been like, that character's inspired by this real person. But instead they're like, we're gonna make it up because we know.
What we need is, okay, fine, you want to have the diversity, equity, and inclusion officer there, fine. I want sorry bro, not realistic officer there as well, whose job is to say, I don't know if I buy that she had a mom pilot. Maybe that happens once in every 500 pilots, but maybe we should look for something a tad more realistic, and then they can fight it out over who wins in that case.
Boo,
and this is in all of it now. Like maybe that's why it rings true. Like most of the shows that I watch where the woman is a cop, her dad was a cop, or her dad was in the military, or something like that.
Not for much longer. Then they're gonna change it all to like.
It's already been changed. It's already been changed.
That's not accurate at all.
It's like a dad.
Accurate. What they tell you is basically the accuracy doesn't matter. I mean, I think about this with the casting in like Bridgerton, which is famously diverse. And maybe that's good because diversity is more important than accuracy, but the story is not believable for the most part because it's inaccurate. That's not what that time period is like. It was a mostly white culture. Like, why are we pretending otherwise?
Yep. It is almost like there is no guy analog where it's like the guy is a fashion house designer because his dad was into fashion.
No, his mom. Forget. Dads are bad. You don't understand.
Okay, so like
because his two dads.
Oh, then it's okay.
Inspired him.
You're right. You found the loophole.
Okay.
His dad and his dad's really good friend who lived in the same house.
But that goes back to what I'm saying about that goes back to what I'm saying about they don't know how to tell stories that are different than male stories, right? Like they don't know how to tell that story in a way that will actually get people to show up. They have to make it a female.
They are bad at writing believable plots. You're right.
They are. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.